The air in the hotel ballroom was thick with the cloying scent of champagne and ambition. It was supposed to be a celebration banquet, a party thrown by her own father to honor her recent design award. But Seraphina felt a knot of unease tightening in her stomach. Her father, Walter, was being too solicitous. Her stepsister, Isabelle, was smiling too sweetly. "My dear sister," Isabelle purred, handing her another glass of champagne. "Just enjoy tonight. You deserve it." The champagne tasted strange, little too sweet, and the room was beginning to tilt at the edges. She felt a wave of dizziness, a fog rolling into her mind. She had to get out. Stumbling away from the party, she made her way down a long, quiet corridor, fumbling with the key card her father had insisted she take. Room 808. She pushed the door open, the darkness of the room a welcome relief from the glittering lights of the ballroom. She collapsed onto the bed, her body feeling heavy, her thoughts a tangled mess. The last thing she remembered was the sound of the door clicking open again, and a tall, shadowy figure silhouetted against the hallway light. "Who are you?" she murmured, her voice a faint whisper. "Never mind who I am," a deep, masculine voice responded, a voice that seemed to cut through the fog in her head. And then, everything went black. When she woke, the first thing she felt was the blinding sunlight streaming through the window. The second was the chilling realization that she was not alone in the bed. She scrambled away, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs, clutching the silk sheet to her chest. The man beside her was still asleep, his handsome face relaxed, his dark hair falling across his forehead. She didn't recognize him. Panic, cold and sharp, seized her. She had been drugged. Set up. By her own family. She dressed silently, her hands trembling, and fled the room, leaving the sleeping stranger behind. She didn't see the small, intricate necklace, a gift from her late mother, that had slipped from her neck and lay half hidden on the pillow beside him. A few hours later, Isabelle slipped into that same hotel room. She found the necklace. She also found the man's wallet on the nightstand. The name on the driver's license made her blood run cold with a sudden, electrifying avarice. Damien Blackwood. The reclusive, absurdly wealthy CEO of the Blackwood Group. The most powerful man in the city. Her plan had been to ruin Seraphina by sending her to the bed of a lecherous, old investor, Mr. Sterling. But this was an opportunity of a lifetime. A wicked, brilliant smile spread across her face. Her sister's ruin would be her own glorious ascension. 7 years. That's how long the lie lasted. 7 years, during which Isabelle, armed with Seraphina's stolen design portfolio and the lie of a shared night of passion, became the fiancée of Damien Blackwood. She became a celebrated designer, a society darling, a woman who had it all. And Seraphina? Seraphina simply vanished. The official story, whispered by her father and stepsister, was that she had run off with some wild, unsuitable man, too ashamed to show her face. The truth was far more complex. In a small, secluded town, far from the glittering world that had cast her out, Seraphina had given birth. Not to one child, but to 5. Quintuplets. A secret, chaotic, beautiful family she had raised on her own, her brilliant design skills her only source of income. Now, 7 years later, she was back. Not as the timid girl who had been so easily betrayed, but as a world-renowned designer, known only by her professional pseudonym. She had been hired for a high-profile project, a project that would force her back into the very world she had fled. A world where her stepsister was wearing her life, and her former lover was about to marry a fraud. "Mommy, you're so beautiful," her daughter, Lily, said, looking up at her with wide, intelligent eyes. "It's not good for us to be so low-key." Seraphina smiled, stroking her daughter's hair. "Guys, can't you keep it down?" But her children, all 5 of them, were buzzing with an energy she couldn't quite decipher. They were geniuses, all of them, especially with technology, and they had been whispering in corners for days, their heads bent over their tablets. She didn't know that they had already discovered the truth. They had hacked into the city's public records, found their father's identity, and learned of his impending marriage to the woman they knew was an imposter. Tomorrow the Blackwood Group and the Sterling family are getting engaged, one of her sons, Leo, read from a society blog on his tablet. "Brother," he said, turning to his identical twin, Lucas. "Daddy doesn't want Mommy. He's marrying another woman. We have to teach him a lesson." "Don't worry," Lucas replied, his fingers flying across his keyboard. "I've already paralyzed all the security and network systems of his company." Damien Blackwood stared at the sea of red on his monitor. Every system in his multi-billion-dollar corporation was down. The servers were frozen. The networks were paralyzed. The company was losing tens of millions of dollars with every passing minute. "What is going on?" he roared, his voice echoing through the silent, powerless trading floor. "What are the tech department people even doing? President, his terrified assistant stammered, I've already called them all back to work overtime to fix it. But the other side is very aggressive. They left a message. A message? What did they say? The assistant swallowed hard. They said, you're his stinky daddy. You're our dad. This is a warning. Damien stared at him, utterly bewildered. A dad? Impossible. All these years, Isabelle has been the only one. It couldn't have been that one time. His mind flashed back to the woman in the hotel room 7 years ago. The woman he had never been able to forget, but whose face remained a frustrating, hazy blur in his memory. He had always assumed it was Isabelle. But what if it wasn't? Sir, the hackers left another message, his assistant interrupted his thoughts. They said, cancel today's engagement ceremony, and we'll lift the restrictions. Bro, will Dad cancel the engagement? Lily asked her brothers, who were monitoring the corporate chaos from their small apartment. Unless he wants his company to go bankrupt, he has no choice, Leo said with a grin. The engagement party was the event of the season. Isabelle was preening, soaking in the attention, a magnificent diamond necklace, a recent gift from Damien, sparkling at her throat. This necklace of yours, a rival socialite commented, it seems like it's from 3 years ago. An auction item. It really is, Isabelle purred. Damien is always so generous with his money. He loves to buy me these little trinkets to keep me happy. In fact, she added, lowering her voice conspiratorially, he's going to personally attend our engagement ceremony today. She then turned her attention to the topic of her missing sister. Speaking of which, it really is different strokes for different folks. You see that sister of mine? She got played by some wild man 7 years ago and then went missing. If she hadn't disappeared, maybe now she could be enjoying this good fortune. Who knows? Maybe she's just naturally inclined to run off with wild men. Oh, let's not talk about that embarrassment, another woman chimed in. She's a disgrace to us, the elite ladies of the city. It was at that moment that Seraphina made her entrance. She was a vision in a simple but exquisitely cut dress, her presence commanding the attention of the entire room. Isabelle, she said, her voice calm and clear. Long time no see. Seraphina? Isabelle gasped, her face draining of all color. You're not dead? Thanks to you, no, Seraphina replied, a cold smile playing on her lips. If I were dead, how could I be here now? Mrs. Damien Blackwood, what a prestigious title you almost had. My sister has been missing for 7 years. Isabelle announced to the confused crowd. Now she's back, pretending to be, who knows what. Someone. Take her out for me. Wait, Seraphina said, holding up a hand. The one who invited me here isn't you, Isabelle. I'm afraid you're not qualified to kick me out. What do you mean? I'm here as a distinguished guest of Mr. Blackwood himself, she said, enjoying the look of shock on her stepsister's face. You're kicking me out? How will you explain that to him? Impossible. How could Damien invite Seraphina? Isabelle muttered under her breath, before plastering on a saccharine smile. I don't care what your intentions are. But in the past, my sister was very good to me. There's no way she would come here to ruin my engagement ceremony. You must be an imposter. I'm calling the police to have you arrested. Good to me? Seraphina laughed, a sound that was both beautiful and chilling. Yes, you were my favorite sister. She moved so fast Isabelle didn't have time to react. A sharp, stinging slap echoed through the ballroom. If a sister does wrong, Seraphina said sweetly, what's wrong with an older sister disciplining her? Just then, Damien Blackwood made his entrance. Damien! Isabelle cried, running to him. This woman impersonated my sister. She even hit me. Hurry up and kick her out. Damien's gaze fell on Seraphina. Mr. Blackwood, she said with a polite nod. We meet again. Today is my engagement ceremony, he said, his voice a low rumble. Are you here to cause trouble? Mr. Blackwood, you've got me all wrong. I was personally invited by you. Unless, she added, holding up the formal invitation, this invitation is a fake. His eyes narrowed. He had indeed sent an invitation to the mysterious new designer his company had hired, but he had no idea it was her. Congratulations, Isabelle. Seraphina said, her voice ringing through the silent ballroom. Today, I've also brought a special gift for you. At that moment, on cue from Leo's tablet miles away, the massive screens behind the stage, which had been displaying romantic photos of Damien and Isabelle, flickered to life. They now showed a series of grainy, but undeniable, surveillance videos. Videos of Isabelle, meeting with other men, accepting lavish gifts, kissing them in dark corners of parking garages. Oh my, a woman in the crowd gasped. Isn't that? Stop it. Don't play it anymore. Isabelle shrieked, her face a mask of horror. Damien, believe me, this is fake. It's all fake. How do you like this little greeting gift? Seraphina asked sweetly. Damien, I haven't done anything to betray you. Isabelle pleaded, grabbing his arm. But he shook her off, his face cold and unreadable. Isabelle, he said, his voice quiet but carrying the weight of a death sentence. Our engagement is cancelled. No, she screamed. It's all fake. Believe me. At that moment, Seraphina's daughter, Lily, who had snuck into the party, ran to her side. Mommy, Lily, how did you sneak out? Seraphina said, scooping her up. Wait, Damien said, his eyes fixed on the little girl. The resemblance was uncanny. She had his eyes. As Seraphina turned to leave, he spoke again. How old is she? The question caught her off guard. Why is he asking that, she thought frantically. She's 8 years old, she lied. Who said that? I'm clearly 6. Lily corrected her, before Seraphina quickly covered her mouth and hurried away, leaving Damien Blackwood standing alone in the wreckage of his engagement party, a storm of questions brewing in his mind. The cancelled engagement was the scandal of the year, but Damien Blackwood had more pressing matters on his mind. The little girl at the party, she looked just like him. It was impossible, and yet. Run a paternity test, he ordered his assistant, handing him a small plastic bag containing 2 strands of hair he had discreetly plucked from Lily's head when he had knelt to talk to her. Make it urgent. And I want you to keep an eye on it. Personally. Mr. Blackwood, are you suspecting that the girl is really your own? His assistant asked, his eyes wide. But, didn't you only ever, with Miss Isabelle? What if, Damien said quietly, more to himself than to his assistant, the woman from that night wasn't Isabelle? While Damien was wrestling with the ghosts of his past, Seraphina was being confronted by her own. Her father, Walter, furious about the public humiliation of his favorite daughter, Isabelle, had resorted to his cruelest tactic. If you want your mother's ashes back, Seraphina, he sneered over the phone, you will resign from your position at the Blackwood Group immediately. Stay away from Damien Blackwood. Or you will never see your mother's final resting place again. The threat was a dagger to her heart. Her mother's ashes were the only tangible thing she had left of her. Defeated, she went to the Blackwood Group headquarters to tender her resignation. No need to call, a voice said from behind her as she stood outside Damien's office. You can tell me directly. It was Damien. He had overheard her phone call. Why are you here? She asked, startled. This little bastard, he said, pointing to Lily who was now clinging to his leg, was calling me daddy. I thought I should see what was going on. So you are her father? Seraphina's father, who had followed her, exclaimed. This is my child. You called her a little bastard. Damien's voice dropped several degrees, his eyes turning to ice. The paternity test shows that Lily is my biological daughter, he announced, his gaze fixed on Seraphina. The world seemed to stop spinning. Mommy, Lily whispered, I told you he was my daddy. Damien then turned to Walter. Your mother's ashes are here, he said, producing a small, ornate urn that his security team had just retrieved. Take them. Out. Mr. Blackwood, this is against the rules, Walter stammered. Her mother's remains should be with our family. Give it to her, Damien commanded, his voice leaving no room for argument. Walter, defeated, handed the urn to Seraphina. Let's go, Damien said, taking her arm. Mr. Blackwood, she said, pulling away once they were outside. Thank you for helping me today. But you've got it wrong. Lily is not your child. The paternity test must be mistaken. Are you doubting that my top-tier, multi-million-dollar hospital would make such a mistake? He retorted. Seraphina, I'm telling you, Lily is my only child. His words were meant to be a statement of fact, but they landed on her like a physical blow. His only child. What about her other 4? You took away my only daughter, he continued. His voice softer now. Daddy, Lily said, looking up at him, Mommy has been really tough raising me all these years. And Seraphina, Damien said, his eyes searching hers, Daddy knows. He will definitely make sure you live a good life from now on. Come with me. I won't say it again. No way, Seraphina thought, her mind racing. With the Blackwood family's power. If I fight him for custody of Lily, there's no chance of winning. I have to let go of her for now. I have to wait for the right opportunity, then leave the country immediately and never come back. Daddy, Mommy, Lily said, her voice small and hopeful, can you give me a kiss? As they both leaned down to kiss her cheek, Lily whispered, I never imagined having such a happy day. I have a daddy and a mommy. The words were a knife in Seraphina's heart. Damien was determined to get to know the daughter he had just discovered. He insisted on taking her home, to his sprawling, empty mansion. Where do you live? He asked Seraphina, who was numbly following along. Maybe I can take you home after. Garden Road, Unit 2, she replied automatically. Then her blood ran cold. Wait. There are 4 other kids at home. Alex should have taken them to school by now, but what if he's late? Her mind raced. Heaven bless. Lily is already exposed. The other four must not be exposed. As they arrived at her modest apartment building, she fumbled with the door code. Hey, that's strange, she said, feigning confusion. My password is correct. Why is it wrong? Director Blackwood, she said, turning to him with a forced smile, I'm sorry, my password is a bit. I can't seem to remember it right now. How about we talk next time? You should just go back first. So you don't want me to come in? He asked, one eyebrow raised, a knowing look in his eyes. Do you have some secret in there that you can't let me know? It's no big deal. I have plenty of time. He pulled out his phone. Find someone to dismantle her door, he said to his assistant. And get the most expensive security door on the market to install in its place. Yes, sir. How's that for a solution? He asked her with a smirk. No need to go through all that trouble, she said frantically. Let me just try one more time. At that moment, the door swung open from the inside. A little boy, the spitting image of Lily, stood there. Mommy, he said, you're in the wrong room. This is our house. Hello, scumbag dad, another identical boy said from behind the first, glaring at Damien. 3 more identical faces peeked out from behind the door. Damien stared, his mind struggling to process the impossible scene before him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 identical children. Quintuplets. Seraphina, he said, his voice a strangled whisper. You secretly took away 5 of my children. Aren't you going to explain? Director Blackwood, she said, her voice shaking, I'm also a victim in this. Okay, he said, his mind clearly reeling. Since you think they are the products of victims? This card, he said, pulling out a sleek, black credit card, has 2 billion on it. The money is yours. The children are mine. Director Blackwood, I don't need your money, she said, her voice gaining strength. They are my children, too. And don't forget, for these 7 years, they have been with me. I gave birth to them, and I raised them. If you think you can, just take them away from me, I'm telling you right now, it is impossible. Let's talk nicely, then, he said, trying a different tactic. We can discuss. Get lost, she retorted. I can add more money. Director Blackwood, you should use what you have to attract Miss Seraphina, his long-suffering assistant whispered. To him? I have money. Is that still not enough? He hissed back. Mr. Blackwood, the assistant sighed, I was talking about fatherly love. Fatherly love? Think about it. What the children need most right now is a father's love. You shouldn't be threatening their mother. Damien looked at the 5 small faces staring up at him, a kaleidoscope of his own features. Fatherly love. He had no idea how to even begin, having discovered he was the father of not 1, but 5 children. Damien Blackwood found himself in uncharted territory. His usual corporate tactics of hostile takeovers and aggressive negotiations were utterly useless here. His assistant's words echoed in his head, fatherly love. He had to win Seraphina over, not just for himself, but for the 5 little pieces of his heart he hadn't even known were missing. His grandfather, upon hearing the news, was ecstatic. 5, the old man had roared with laughter. You have 5 great-grandchildren. They're all from our Blackwood family, right? My boy, you are impressive. 5 at once. His grandfather's advice was simple and direct. A determined woman fears a persistent man. You need to think carefully about how to win Seraphina over. Don't use those thug tactics of yours. She's not an ordinary woman. A woman who can give birth to triplets, quintuplets, Grandpa, Damien corrected. Quintuplets. Is she an ordinary woman? You handle it yourself. So, Damien began his campaign. He knew Seraphina was fiercely independent and proud. He couldn't just throw money at her, she had already proven that didn't work. He had to show her he wanted to be a father. He started by showing up at their school. Gufang, Seraphina's close friend Alex, is just these kids' uncle, one of the mothers whispered to another. I always thought they were his illegitimate children. Can't even tell what brand her clothes are, the other sniffed. Probably a mistress who climbed her way up. The whispers followed Seraphina everywhere. One afternoon, a boy from a wealthy family, a notorious bully, pushed one of her sons. Little bastards without a dad, he sneered. Why are you even coming to school? Don't you dare bully my brother. Her daughter, Luna, shot back, defending him. The situation quickly escalated into a full-blown playground brawl. Seraphina arrived to find her children tear-streaked and bruised, facing off against a furious mother. So, you're their mom. The woman sneered. Having so many, one might think you had them with different men. The insult was so vile that Seraphina reacted without thinking, slapping the woman across the face. You hit my child. Shouldn't I hit you? She retorted. This is a school, not a marketplace, the teacher intervened. I'm telling you, the other mother shrieked, I am a major shareholder in this kindergarten. I'll have your disobedient children expelled. They called my children fatherless brats, Seraphina said, her voice shaking with rage. That's why we fought back. Lily, call Daddy, she whispered to her son. They're calling for backup. We can't lose this fight. Just as the other woman's husband, a portly, arrogant man, arrived, ready to throw his weight around, another car, a sleek, black Rolls-Royce, pulled up to the curb. Damien Blackwood stepped out. Someone was bullying my son and daughter? He asked, his voice dangerously quiet. You, the woman stammered, her face paling. You bullied my son and my daughter. And you still have the nerve to talk big. That's right, he said. They are all my kids. The revelation sent a shockwave through the crowd of parents and teachers. 70% of this kindergarten's shares are mine, Damien announced coolly. I didn't expect anyone would dare to mess with my woman and my children on my own turf. The arrogant husband, Mr. Fong, nearly fainted. Mr. Blackwood. I apologize for my wife's lack of recognition. My son's injury, and my daughter's dress, Damien said, his eyes cold as ice. Shouldn't they be worth at least, say, 10 or 20 million? The weather is getting cold, he continued, turning to Mr. Fong. It's about time your company went bankrupt. Mr. Blackwood, I'll compensate. I'll pay everything. Mr. Fong pleaded. Too late, Damien said, turning his back on them. Let's go home. He had protected them. He had defended her honor. And in that moment, Seraphina saw not just a powerful CEO, but a father. A fierce, protective father. Seraphina was struggling. The man she had spent 7 years trying to forget, the faceless stranger from a night of betrayal and confusion, was now a constant, undeniable presence in her life. He was Damien Blackwood, the father of her 5 children, and he was relentlessly, methodically, trying to win her over. It was disorienting. He used his immense wealth not to buy her, but to smooth the rough edges of her life. He had the best chefs in the city deliver gourmet meals to her apartment. He had a truckload of the latest, most expensive toys delivered for the children. He even, in a move that both touched and infuriated her, acquired the small design firm she was working for, just so he could be her new boss. But it was the small things that truly began to wear down her defenses. The way he would look at the children, a mixture of awe and fierce love in his eyes. The way he patiently tried to learn each of their 5 distinct personalities. The way he would show up at her apartment after a long day, not as a powerful CEO, but just as a man, looking tired and hopeful, asking if he could read them a bedtime story. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at work, she found him in her kitchen, awkwardly trying to make dinner. I thought you might be tired, he said, a smudge of flour on his cheek. Daddy, her son, Lucas, confided in him later, Mommy likes to watch male models with 8-packs. And she wants to take back Grandma's company. And she values Grandma's memory more than anything. It was a clumsy, childish attempt at matchmaking, but Damien took the intel seriously. He began researching her mother's life, her work, the company she had founded, which had been stolen by Walter after her death. One afternoon, he showed up at her office. I prepared 2 gifts for you, he said. I don't need them, she said curtly. Wait until you see them tonight, he insisted. I'll be waiting for you at your place. When she arrived home, she found him waiting with a single, perfect rose. And a thick legal document. I've started the process of acquiring your father's company, he said simply. I'm going to give it back to you. It's what your mother would have wanted. The gesture, so thoughtful, so profound, left her speechless. But her trust had been broken. Too many times. Later that week, a junior designer at her firm, a young woman named Shasha, tricked her into accompanying her to a client meeting at a private tennis club. The client, an lecherous old man named Mr. Wong, immediately began to harass her. She told me you were eager to meet me, he said with a greasy smile. She said you just like to play around. The situation escalated quickly, and just as Mr. Wong was about to physically assault her, Damien appeared, seemingly out of nowhere. He had been following her, worried for her safety. The confrontation was swift and brutal. I think the Wong group has been too comfortable for too long, Damien said, his voice deadly calm after he had physically removed Mr. Wong from his wife. As of today, the Blackwood Corporation is cutting all ties with you. The fallout for Mr. Wong was immediate and catastrophic. But the incident had been a setup. Shasha, the junior designer, had been manipulated by Isabelle. And the water she had given Seraphina had been drugged. Back at her apartment, the drug began to take hold. She felt hot, dizzy, her inhibitions melting away. Damien, worried, stayed with her. Calm down, he said, trying to get her to drink some cold water. I'll go find a doctor. But in her drugged state, she pulled him close. You're so handsome, she murmured, her hands tracing the lines of his face. The night became a blur. She woke up the next morning, wrapped in his arms, a wave of horror and a confusing, undeniable flicker of pleasure washing over her. Last night was a big misunderstanding, she said, trying to flee. How big of a misunderstanding? He asked, a slow smile spreading across his face. I suspect I was drugged yesterday. By that girl from the company. I don't care about that, he said, pulling her back. I'm the victim in this matter. You have to find a way to compensate. Me? How can I compensate you? How about, he whispered in her ear, you have 5 more children with me. The leaked design drafts caused a firestorm. The company was facing billions in penalties, and Seraphina, as the team leader, was in the hot seat. She knew immediately who was behind it. It had her father and stepsister's fingerprints all over it. It's you guys, isn't it, she said, storming into her family's villa. Seraphina, what are you doing here? Isabelle asked, feigning innocence. Tanky Axio, the designer who leaked the plans, she works for you, doesn't she? You sent her to frame me. You've taken everything from me, Isabelle spat, her mask of sweetness finally dropping. This is your karma. Did you really think she was loyal to you? The team leader position should have been hers. I told her to steal your design plans. And, she added with a triumphant sneer, I also sent old Master Blackwood a little gift. Those intimate photos of you and President Wong from the tennis club. I'd like to see how, after all this, you can possibly still become Mrs. Blackwood. The betrayal was breathtaking in its cruelty. My mother, Seraphina said, her voice shaking. With rage, how did she really die? The moment she passed, you immediately took over her company. Do you even have a conscience left? And this villa, this was my mother's house. What right do you outsiders have to stay here? She began to smash the expensive vases and trinkets in the room, her grief and rage finally boiling over. Somebody arrest this lunatic. Walter shrieked. But it was too late. The police, summoned by Damien, were already there. I reported it under my real name, Damien said, stepping into the room. Sui Hong and Isabelle Monroe, in connection with industrial espionage and a suspicious homicide. He turned to a stunned Seraphina. The private doctor who signed your mother's death certificate? His son works for me. He confessed that his father was paid a large sum of money by Walter to prescribe drugs to your mother, drugs that slowly poisoned her. No. It wasn't me. Walter screamed as the police led him and a hysterical Isabelle away. With the villains finally taken care of, the path was clear. A few days later, at the finals of the city's most prestigious jewelry design competition, Seraphina stood on stage, her design having been chosen as the winner. The theme of the competition had been wedding rings. People have been asking me why we chose this theme, a voice said from the side of the stage. It was Damien. He walked out to join her, taking the microphone. The reason is, I wanted to help my wife choose a ring. A gasp went through the audience. For some reason, he continued, turning to face a stunned Seraphina, I never officially proposed. I never even gave my wife a proper wedding. Here, tonight, in front of all of you, I want to make up for all of that. He got down on one knee, holding up the very ring she had just designed. Seraphina, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I admit I was wrong. I was a fool. But falling for you at first sight, 8 years ago, was real. And wanting to walk with you and our 5 children forever is the most real thing I have ever felt. Will you marry me? Marry him, the crowd chanted. Seraphina looked at him, at this incredible man who had turned her world upside down and then put it back together again. She looked at her 5 children, who were in the front row, their faces shining with hope. I do, she whispered, as he slipped her own creation, her own design, onto her finger. The applause was deafening.